Is hereby and having merely suspended the juncture to acknowledge the presence of all the resource persons herein present.
Good afternoon. The Committee on Foreign Relations would like to acknowledge the presence of our distinguished guests, namely, from the Department of Foreign Affairs, we have Assistant Secretary Maria Elena P. Algabre, Deputy Assistant Secretary Rafael S. Hermoso, Assistant Secretary Mardomel Celo Melicor, Assistant Secretary Adrian Bernie C. Candolada. To attend virtually, we have Ambassador Maria Helen de la Vega, Ambassador Alfonso Ver, Ambassador Juniver Mahilum West, Minister and Consul General Arnel Talisayon, from the Department of Agriculture, we have OIC Chief Rowena Galang. From the Department of Budget and Management, we have Attorney Tricia M. Baraan and Joy R. Rico. From the Armed Forces of the Philippines, we have Captain Vincent J. Sibala, PN, Captain Emilio G. Orio Jr., PN, Lieutenant Commander Colonel Winston T. Layugan, PN. From the Department of Migrant Workers, we have Director Francisco S. Aguilar Jr. From the Department of Public Works and Highways, we have Attorney Alvin Demiar. From Department of Trade and Industry, Mario Tani, Luis Quiñones, OIC
Is
Vice...
he here? I'm sorry. Can you just raise your right hand because I'm not certain? Luis Quiñones, please. Okay. Di ko po kayo makita. Pwede lang dito. Okay.
From the Philippine International Trading Corporation, Joel S. Rodriguez.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Joel. Oh, you're the one who's not marked. And you're the one who's here. But Serafico, Andriano are not here? Oh, okay. You're both here. Okay. Sige. Tuloy-tuloy lang.
From the National Bureau of Investigation, we have...
Teka, walang taga Marina?
They confirm, but they are not here. They are not here as of
How are we
this
supposed
moment.
to hear this if they're absent? Is anyone coming? Can you please call? At least they should be online.
Yes, ma'am. We will...
This is their area of responsibility. They really ought to be here.
Yes, ma'am. We sent out notices, invites, ma'am, early last week. So,
Yes, that's right.
and they sent a confirmation po, ma'am. So we will
Yes, what's
just...
happened since then? Why is no one here? The Bill's Square on Marina's purview.
They have yet to arrive, ma'am.
No, but they're on their way ba?
Yes,
Is there
ma'am.
some kind of confirmation from them that they're going to actually turn up? Ah,
Yes,
okay lang
ma'am,
kung late.
nagpadala.
Walang problema kung late. Kaya lang hindi tayo makakapagtalakay nitong batas na to kapag wala sila.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, please
Yes.
proceed with the
Um,
NBI, please.
Okay. From the National Bureau of Investigation, we have Director Medardo de Lemos. Supervising Agent, Filipinas S. Astrero.
Okay.
Head Agent, Christopher N. Godinez. Attorney Alice L. Aquit-Baneg. From the Philippine Coast Guard, we have Coast Guard Captain Jaibon J. Kalika.
Kalika. Okay.
Coast Guard Commander, sorry, CGADR Alberto T. Ferre, Coast Guard Captain Avelino A. Sally. From the Philippine National Police, we have Police Brigadier General Romaldo G. Baiting. From the National Historical Commission of the Philippines, we have Miss Christine Dulnuan. There. Ma'am.
Okay. You're also with the Coast Guard? I'm lost. Called NCCA?
NHCP, ma'am.
NHCP.
National-
NCCA, wala. There you are. Okay. Pwede kayong maupo dyan. Kasya naman po.
From NCCA, we have Mr. Bernan Joseph R. Corpus. And ma'am, I was just informed that also present are Ambassador Dison de Vera, Deputy Assistant Secretary Maria Elena Maningat.
Oh, they are the ones who are online? No. You're actually present. Okay. Tapos? Yes,
That
is
will
that
be
all?
all, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. As you know, we have a lengthy agenda, but that being said, we nevertheless have fairly similar bills. 219, declaring Friendship Day with the Philippine France. 2556, Friendship Day, United Arab Emirates. Friendship Day, South Korea. Australia, Japan, Mongolia, Hungary, and Israel. There is also the Good Samaritan Act in both Senate Bill 1136 and 1388. In line with the country's foreign policy, friend to all and enemy to none, the bills establishing and dedicating friendship days with the country's valuable partners will further seek to further solidify the relations with these states, designating special days to celebrate, pay tribute, and memorialize enduring ties between the Philippines and these countries, recognizes and honors the relations and steadfast commitment to harmonious and peaceful diplomatic relations. Meanwhile, the Good Samaritan at Sea bills aim to implement the international maritime instruments already ratified by the Philippine government concerning safety of life at sea and the duty to render assistance to all persons in distress at sea, to which the Philippines is a state party. They seek to provide a domestic law which mandates applicable rules of conduct in case of accidents at sea. During the deliberations of the DOTR budget last September 2023, Marina reported an alarming rise in maritime incidents, upwards of 782 recorded during a 5-year period. Thus, the proponents of these bills determined it imperative to pass the law and assure that assistance shall come to those who need it. All right. Okay. Committee Secretary, what's the explanation from Senator Joel Villanueva? Yes, Senator Joel Villanueva is one of the authors of the bills to be taken up in the agenda this afternoon, but given that he is absent, he has manifested that an opening statement that he has previously prepared is to be considered part of the record of this public hearing. And with that, I insert, therefore, his opening statement sponsoring the Philippine-Israel Friendship Day in Senate Bill 2141. So this is deemed as part of the record. Thank you. Okay, so it's quite a few of these. We begin with the bill of Senator Tulfo. I believe it's to do with France. Perhaps before going into the detail regarding the various Friendship Day bills. I'd like to primarily ask, do we actually need a law to declare a friendship bill? What is the use of such a law? Shouldn't there just be a presidential issuance? In my understanding, other countries do not legislate friendship bills. So, is this even necessary? DFA, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Good afternoon again. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to present the position with the Department of Foreign Affairs. I am ASEC Adrian Bernie Candelada. We want to give you an overview of the position of the Department of Foreign Affairs. By the way, online also present is our ambassador to Hungary, Ambassador Frank Simafranca.
Yes, thank you very much. We recognize the ambassador from
Thank you,
for
ma'am.
Hungary. Yes, please.
Okay.
Just a quick question. Why is it even necessary to enact a law to commemorate friendship with France or any other country?
If you allow me, we have a very brief, just introductory
Yes,
statement.
yes.
Thank you.
Please
We
proceed.
generally support the objective of the bills, all the bills proposing commemorative events under consideration, which is to commemorate the milestone years in our bilateral relations. In fact, the Department of Foreign Affairs, through its Foreign Service posts, celebrates these milestones on a regular basis. Diplomatic missions in Manila also initiate such activities almost always
Sorry, I
on a
didn't get the
reciprocal
first
basis.
sentence. What was it?
We commemorate the milestone years in our bilateral
okay.
relations on a regular basis, which means on a regular basis, every 5 years normally, 20 years, 15 years, we do that.
Sure. Okay.
And also our diplomatic missions, resident embassies here in Manila also do the same.
Also, what?
Do
I
the
think
same.
we're, there's
Also do the same, sorry.
also.
Also initiate such activities. They
Yes,
also
but these
initiate.
are activities. I know for a fact that Spain, for example, we have a Philippine-Spain friendship bill, but it appears that there isn't a counterpart bill in Spain. So other countries don't do this.
Yes, ma'am. If you asked us if there is a legislation on the part of our other countries, which we have diplomatic relations, we are not quite sure of that there is none. In fact, we are not aware of any legislation which also calls for a commemorative event as far as Philippine relations with a specific country.
I think necessarily, as you indicated, we've always celebrated landmarks and
Yes.
years such as the 10th year, the 50th year, and so on. Parati naman talagang pinagdiriwang yon. Pero kinakailangan pa ba isa batas ito?
Our position is that it is not necessary through
Okay.
legislation, ma'am. If
That's
we-
correct.
if you-
And also that the other countries do not legislate the same.
Yes, ma'am.
For example, the Philippine-Spain friendship is not declared likewise in Spain. Isn't that correct?
For specific questions, I will ask our heads of geographic office to answer that, ma'am. But if you allow me, we have two more arguments to present to you.
Your
You just-
arguments are pro or con?
More con, ma'am.
Yes, correct. No, it's fine. It's just a
Okay.
yes or no.
Such
The
commemorative,
authors aren't here in the first place.
we also think that the proposals like this would entail general appropriations on a regular basis.
Yes,
and-
there's a level of concern with
can
the
be costly.
first one, which is the Philippine-France one. It involved 15 million and also falls under one of the cultural affairs groups under the NHCP and not the DFA, which I thought was peculiar as well.
In fact, for us, due to our tight fiscal policy, it is more prudent for us to do these things on, not every year, but on significant years like 15, 20.
That's correct. Yes, what I know is 50 years is usually the operative time frame, di ba?
Thirdly, ma'am, we have also to take into consideration the political sensitivity of this proposal. Of course, other countries would ask why we are only doing this to several countries, not to others. So there is a political sensitivity component into this proposals.
Yes, I think there's a level of concern with regard to the Philippine-Israel Friendship Day. this might not be the best time to do so, to pass such.
For other questions, yes. For other questions, ma'am, we have the heads of our ASPAC, our Middle East, and our European affairs to address some of the questions, specific questions. Ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, that's great. Is there anyone else who would like to weigh in on the propriety and necessity of passing Friendship Day bills with various countries? Anything else we'd like to add? Firstly, we don't have any friendship bills with ASEAN, which should be the first circle of friendship. Wala namang ganun, di ba? So I'm a little curious as to the need for this. Sige. And if absolutely necessary, if there's some urgent, compelling, and very important reason to declare a Friendship Day, surely an executive issuance from the President would suffice. What are your thoughts, DFA, please?
Definitely, yes, ma'am. It doesn't have to be through legislation. It can be done through an executive order, administrative order, or maybe in fact,
Nothing at all. I mean, you just celebrate it,
on
right?
the part of the Senate or Congress, you can pass also a resolution.
Yes, which we
declaring
have
which
on
we have done
occasion upon
basis.
visits by the foreign minister or the counterparts in the foreign senates. We've done that regularly, that's
Yes,
correct.
ma'am, that's correct. Thank you.
So we can have a very short hearing. This is great. Okay, so you're saying bills 1 to 8 may no longer be necessary. Coco, now the author is here. The position, Coco, of the DFA is that there is no need to declare friendship days, and that in fact the counterpart countries, such as Spain, have never declared friendship days. Even if we have a Philippine-Spain friendship day sa Spain, di naman nila ginawang batas. So perhaps it's not necessary, and it might impose undue budget burdens on us to compel us year on year to celebrate when the usual practice is every 50 years only.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, for scheduling and the bills for hearing. Well, number one, we determine our own acts. I mean, if Spain does not do it, so why does that determine what we should do or not do, di ba? And if you read the bills, sinabi naman doon yung mga milestone years lang, 50th, 75th, 100th. So, don't tell me na grabe ang budgetary ano nito na because every year you need to celebrate it.
It didn't refer to your bill. There was a bill filed by Senator Tulfo that imposes a 15 million budget on the Philippine fronts bill. So I'm certain we can do without
Ayusin
that.
na lang natin. But
Oo.
siguro yun lang
That's
pakiusap ko. Let us
2129.
not,
Ang sinasabi lang nila na hindi na kailangan ng friendship laws.
Actually, marami na rin tumatawag sa akin ng mga ambassadors and they appreciate it actually. Basta ang point ko lang, let not state practice by another state determine what we should do. Di ba?
My concern was that
If they
among
do-
these friendship bills, there isn't a single one that refers to the primary circle of friendship, ASEAN. There isn't a single ASEAN country
Precisely. So
that's declared here.
we
Eh kung mag-friendship day, di ba dapat mag-umpisa sa barangay ASEAN?
Pwede. Yes. Ganun yun. So we can do it sa ASEAN and then we can do it dun sa ibang ano. So I don't think we will lose anything. Kung budgetary naman ito, nasa sa DF. It was already, yung bills ko at least delegated it to the
That's
DFA to
correct.
celebrate. The milestone, milestone.
That's
Yung iba nga,
correct.
kunyari 73rd na yung iba, say you celebrate the 75th. You no longer celebrate the 50th. Lampas-lampas na yung iba.
O maraming lampas-lampas na.
So yun lang po. So maybe Madam Chair, if they can just study it in detail. Basta may pattern naman yung bill ko eh. May pattern siya. It does not even affect the nature of the day itself. If it's
It
a
doesn't
holiday,
even say if it's
a
a holiday or
by
special
virtue of
non-working day.
another law,
Wala
then it
nga eh.
remains. Dapat ito wala. It should not affect. It's just a declaration, a commemoration, a marking of the friendship with another country.
Yes, I think, for example, the commemoration of the Hungary Friendship Day is important because yun lang ang tanging kakampi ng Pilipinas sa Eurobloc. Isa
Precisely.
yun.
Mga ganun
Yung
ba?
medyo
So,
obvious ba? Sila lang ang bumoboto para sa atin lagi.
At saka, agree naman yata tayo that we want to be a friend to all nations. So all the more we are declaring friendship days which do not add to holidays. Which should
No,
not
wala naman.
add to holidays.
Wala naman talaga.
Walang effect.
Wala namang holiday, wala namang
Wala.
deklarasyon
It's
kung working or
It's just a
non-working.
commemoration. And then even yung actual celebration, nasa sa DFA na. Depends on your budget na rin. Apa.
Okay, we'll take that in
Sige po.
consideration po. The other controversial Friendship Day is authored by two of our colleagues, JV and Joel Villanueva both, and that is the commemoration of the Philippine-Israel Friendship Day coming up on August 9. There have been some objections to the same, given the present war against Gaza and the West Bank. So there's concern that it may not be timely and should be postponed at the very least. And since we're privileged with your presence, Minority Leader, what are your thoughts?
Maybe on the timeliness because nga of what's happening. But as to the idea, that for the long-term interests of the country na we are a friend to all nations, it should not matter what that particular nation is doing at the moment. But that does not bind our hands in voting for specific United Nations resolutions or other resolutions in
Yes.
other tribunals or other bodies. Ganun. So,
Thank you.
I mean, guarded naman yung wording niyan eh. We're celebrating our friendship with another nation, and that's our policy.
Thank you, and I don't think the friendship with Israel as well as their support to us can be disputed, regardless of. I think we can proceed to a TWG. Anong gagawin dyan? At yes, Mr. Aguilar of the
Actually, Madam Chair, the DMW is holding a friendship week. It's a friendship week. We just started it last year with
is there a
Canada,
specific country? Just Canada.
Germany, and we just finished last month for Romania. And this coming month, it would be a friendship week for Austria. Magkasama po kami ng DFA. Asik Algabre is here. So kasama po siya during the celebration. And I hope we can invite you doon po sa aming Friendship Week ginaganap para po makita nyo kung paano namin isinicelebrate ito alongside with the different embassies who are being fitted.
Yeah. Ang problema, si Minority Leader at ako, pareho na kami tinatamad magbiyahe. Doon ba?
Dito lang yata, sa mall lang yata.
Doon
Dito sa mall.
eh.
Mall in Metro
Sa
Manila.
DMW lobby po.
Dito lang pwede. Pero mga ayaw na ng biyahe ng mga ito. Ayun. Yung iba gustong-gusto biyahe, kami naman kontrabida.
And Madam Chair, we also have a video of how we have celebrated it, just in case you wanted to see how
Oh, that'd
this is
be
being
great. I
done.
think you can submit it and make it part of the
Apo.
record, and the TWG can take it into consideration. Maraming salamat kasi
Madam Chair.
hindi babanggit yung DMW dito.
Ang tanong ko lang ito, bakit nyo naisip yon? Sige nga.
Okay.
So,
Thank you, Senator Coco. Ito po ay naisip ng DMW because we believe na through this we can easily establish the rapport from our counterparts, and we saw it after we have done the Friendship Week kung gaano ka-receptive, ano yung epekto doon sa aming ginagawa at doon sa aming pong hinihiling, especially when it comes to the welfare and services for our OFWs, which is being hosted by those countries involved.
May niya marami, Pilipino?
marami na pong Pilipino sa Romania ngayon, and it's part of the emerging market, kaya po patuloy pong lumalaki yung dami ng mga
So,
OFWs.
So are we saying that the DMW holds the opposite notion that it would be useful to have a friendship day because DFA already said it wasn't necessary? Sorry? It wasn't
Not necessary,
necessary to
but-
have a law. It was great to have a friendship day. It could be done by an executive issuance if if there was a landmark occasion. Otherwise, it could just occur exactly as the DMW has celebrated it without a law on their own and in the hope of fostering better relations. Tama ba yun?
Tama po, Madam Chair.
will the passage of a law damage anything?
I don't think...
Hindi, DFA na tinatanong ko.
Apo.
Kasi sabi nyo, it can be done by executive action. So, if there is a law, kasi executive action, expression naman ng executive sentiment yon. What if it's expression of legislative sentiment in a law? Will it damage? Will it damage anything? Any system? Any ongoing processes?
Not damage in a sense, Your Honor, but we don't think that we can pursue activities without the law. For example, we have been doing commemorative events, not necessarily on National Day celebrations, but usually it is events as commemorative events are associated with the celebration of our National Day celebration. And we highlight commemorative
Sorry.
events.
As a Candolada, you're arguing against yourself.
No.
You just said that you cannot celebrate unless there's a law.
Our position
I'm
is that
lost.
we don't have to have a law to be able to celebrate a specific special day with a specific country. No, as we have argued that we have center position one, it's not, there is political sensitivity in some aspects. Second, it imposes on us the need to have appropriations, and we have a hard time at this time even asking for additional financial support. And of course, we think that we can proceed with the activities that we have without necessarily a law to be passed. And but we are proposing, if you allow us, Your Honors, we have something in mind that if we have to come up with specific activities, because the problem of implementation is always a problem for several of our foreign service posts. We cannot proceed with big activities precisely because we are limited with funds. Our proposal, it is just an idea at this time, is that we come up with an omnibus bill that would provide funding, and all foreign service posts making or celebrating commemorative events have access to these funds. Thank you.
I see. Well taken. Well taken. We understand that if law is then passed, there's a level of obligation on the part of the DFA as well as the DMW, whether they have the resources or not to celebrate and commemorate. Tama ba yun? Okay po. Maybe we can ask also the ambassadors who are online what their thoughts are. I think in Abu Dhabi, the ambassador is there, Ambassador Ver, Ambassador Vega in Canberra, the Philippine Embassy in Budapest. I think you're online and you're in a difficult time zone. So would any one of you like to respond or add to the discussion, please? Ambassador Simafranca, Ambassador Ver, Ambassador Vega. All of you are recognized. Can you just tell me who'd like to speak?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ambassador Simafranca. What time is it?
it's about 7:15 here, 7:30
Okay.
here in.
Okay, you
So,
look awake,
good morning.
Ambassador. Thank you.
Yeah, Madam Chair, distinguished members of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, colleagues in government, thank you for this opportunity. For me to participate in this important exercise. Actually, this year we are still commemorating the 50th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between the Philippines and Hungary. It started in 28 September last year. However, because of what ASEC Andolada has said, because of the constraints in funding, we cannot celebrate it meaningfully last year, except that during our National Day reception, we were so lucky to have Dr. Rao Sunico, in which we made him perform, during our National Day event, and we included that as an event to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between our two countries. So, in general, I would say that we would like to really support the establishment of friendship days, regardless of how it will be done, whether it's by law or through executive issuance. But then milestone commemorations should be sufficiently funded so that we would be able to celebrate these milestone events in a meaningful way. So thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Yes, well taken, Ambassador. That's correct. Ambassador Ver is raising his hand from Abu Dhabi, please.
Morning, Madam Chair. Rahaba Sabalker from the UAE. And I'd like to greet also Senator Pimentel. If he would recall, just 2 months ago, he was here for the World Government Summit, and I think he saw firsthand the close relations between our two countries. And in fact, he was able to meet the Speaker of the Federal National Parliament with very little arrangements. It's just through our contacts. And then we are also celebrating our 50th anniversary this year. And I echo the statements of Pastor Sima Franca. Here, with almost 1 million Filipinos, in addition to funding support, we are also able to tap on the Filipino community, the many businesses who are already here and who are very willing and ready to sponsor and help our activities. But it is the people-to-people friendship that we have established, and we continue to be the most preferred workers here, professionals from the top down to the household service workers. We are the third largest population, expat population, and many success stories are happening here. Many Filipinos, not the least of which Michael Cinco.
Ambassador, you don't see any problem with commemorating or even celebrating the UAE Philippines Friendship Day? You mentioned
Yes.
that there are almost 1 million Filipinos perfectly happy to assist and even sponsor. Is that correct?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. The ambassador, perhaps from South Korea, from Seoul, Ambassador De Vega, please.
Good afternoon, Your Honors, Honorable Chairperson, Senator Marcos, Senator Pimentel. First of all, on behalf of the Philippine Embassy in Seoul, we would like to thank the Senate for passing a Senate resolution last month commemorating the 75th anniversary of Philippines-Korea diplomatic relations. We are in the midst of commemorating this special event throughout the year. We're very fortunate that in our case, we do have adequate funding to hold some commemorative events. And there is much to celebrate in our relations. We just signed a free trade agreement, the Philippines' second bilateral free trade agreement since the JPEPA with Japan was signed almost 16 years ago. But it is a forward-looking relationship, and my esteemed colleagues in Budapest and Abu Dhabi, the Philippine Embassy in Seoul also welcomes the idea, the proposal to have a Friendship Day designation for Philippines and Korea. For the information of the Honorable Chairperson and Senator Pimentel, in Korea, they do not necessarily legislate commemorative events or years. What they do is they do issue, like our legislature does from time to time, special resolutions from the National Assembly commemorating auspicious events in the relations. But that, of course, does not stop us from commemorating in our own way, through various means and through various levels, the importance of these occasions. So in whatever form it is, whether it's through an executive issuance or through through legislation or through a resolution, the Philippine Embassy in Korea welcomes these expressions of support and friendship. We believe this is a very fruitful and productive and impactful exercise to reaffirm our long-standing partnership and friendship and cooperation with many countries in the world. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Ambassador De Vega. Thank you very much. And it's good to hear that funding will somehow be scraped together. And as you have done, as all the embassies have done, time and time again, each Independence Day, June 12, each Christmas holiday, the embassies somehow scramble together with the Filipino community, with or without a budget release from the DFA and the national government. Nagagawa naman ng paraan, ang gagaling natin dyan. Yung Philippine-Australia, I understand the ambassador's online.
Thank you, Your Honor, for this opportunity, and greetings as well here from the Philippine Embassy in Canberra, Australia. Ma'am, on your first query, whether it is necessary to have a law, as far as the Philippine-Australia Friendship Day is concerned, meron na po kaming a presidential directive that was issued in 2016, and in fact, every May 22nd, we are actually commemorating Philippine-Australia Friendship Day. And just like the rest of my colleagues from the Foreign Service,
Ambassador, I'm a little confused. You made reference to a previous issuance, is that correct? That already declares the 22nd of May as a Friendship Day. And you are saying that this present law is necessary? Did I hear correctly?
No, ma'am. That's why it's no longer necessary, because the Philippine-Australian Friendship Day is covered under Presidential Proclamation number 1282, series of 2016, ma'am.
Oh, I see. That's Presidential Proclamation. Sorry, can I have the number again?
1282, ma'am, series of 2016.
Okay. So to your mind, it's no longer necessary because it's covered by the
That's right,
proclamation. Okay.
Yes, and with reference to the proposal made by Senator Pimentel, sinabi po niya kanina some reference that there is this executive action, but then there may be also some interest from the legislature, and there was some suggestion of a resolution. I thought that from where I sit here in Canberra, ma'am, the other measure is actually to build on Philippine and, for instance, in my case, the Philippine-Australia Parliamentary Friendship Group. And so this would also be a pathway where other countries where we share values and some projects and sentiments, that can be a platform also for Congress or the Senate to look into. Thank you, ma'am, for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Madam Ambassador. Are there any other ambassadors online? Would the embassy in China like to comment? The embassy in Paris like to comment? And there's Tokyo still, I think. Yeah. And Israel, sorry. Okay. May I call on firstly the embassy in China represented by Arnel Talisayon. Anything you'd like to add to the discussion? Although a friendship day with China is not being proposed. Wala sa listahan po.
Good afternoon, Senator. Maraming salamat po. We're here because we also cover Mongolia po. And
Oh, that's
therefore,
correct. It's with Mongolia. That's correct, yeah.
yes, Senator. And for us, Madam Senator,
The
we support,
the Mongolian senators, the Senate came very recently to our Senate, and yes, would you like to make a comment about the Mongolia Friendship Day, which is part of the territory covered by your embassy?
Thank you po, Madam Senator. We do support expressions of yung mga ganitong initiatives on Friendship Days, whether it's in the form of an executive or a legislative issuance. As you had mentioned earlier po, Madam Senator, we have a very good relationship with the Mongolian Parliament, and they were just in Manila. And all of these activities that we're doing now are also a continuation of the 50th anniversary of our anniversary celebrations last year. We have a very good working relationship with them. As a matter of fact, we already have a Mongolia-Philippines Parliamentary Friendship Group in Mongolia, and I understand that a similar initiative is being contemplated in the Philippines.
Thank you very
on our
much,
end
yeah.
po,
Carry
we
on.
support po.
Yes, yes, that's absolutely correct. But are there Filipinos in Mongolia? There's no Philippine embassy, di ba?
There's no Philippine embassy po. We have a Philippine honorary consulate, and there are, based on our estimate, there are about 300 Filipinos in Mongolia, mostly as teachers.
Yes, that's right. That's part of the large migration of Filipino teachers to China and the adjoining territories. Thank you very much. And perhaps what we should work on is a dairy cooperation, given that Mongolia is such a leader in that field, whereas in fact here in the Philippines we produce less than 1% of our required daily consumption. Sige, I think Senator Pimentel, our minority leader, has said that one way to obviate the obligation to celebrate is simply to delete the appropriations clause in these friendship bills.
Madam Chair, we will study that because of the inputs of the DFA. Because the intention really is to designate our special day with other countries because of the establishment of bilateral relations with the other countries as a special day. So naisip lang namin yun that you should celebrate. Pero ang reading ng department this will entail appropriations at baka hindi makaya. So we will try to improve the future bills that we are going to file, Madam Chair. And also in the TWG of the already heard bills, we can probably structure the bill in such a way that there is no budgetary burden, Madam Chair.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Sino nagpondo nung sa DMW? May week pa kayo, hindi lang day.
Yes, Madam Chair. It's Friendship Week, actually.
I understand, but who funded it?
It's funded by from the DMW budget.
Bakit ang DMW may budget tapos yung DFA wala?
Pero ang ano kasi yun ang designation ng Friendship Week parang arbitrary na yun sa DMW. Sa atin kasi really the day that we establish bilateral relations with specific countries, yun ang gusto kong by law na designate yung day na yun as a special day because of that reason.
And may I add,
Okay,
Your Honors?
sorry.
Usually, these commemorative events are pursued or implemented by our foreign service posts. So, sa labas naman kailangan mo ng budget talaga. You don't have support services from other agencies. So, the embassy should have the wherewithal to make sure that the celebration is meaningful. Thank you, Mr.
Okay, I think the ambassador to France is around or the DCM in...
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Actually, ang point ng bills natin is dito sa Pilipinas for Filipinos to be aware of the the bilateral relations with other countries. Oy, naka-75 na pala tayo with that country, mga ganun. So, kaya nga, we can really do it in such a way na we will lessen the budgetary implication.
Okay, at this juncture, I'd like to recognize also the DCM and Congen in Tokyo. Would you like to weigh in on the subject of the Philippine-Japan Friendship Day?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Senators. Good afternoon, colleagues. Ma'am, for Japan, in 2005, a proclamation was signed by then President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo declaring July 23 as the Philippine-Japan Friendship Day. Although we defer to the wisdom of the
So pareho kayo ng Australia
Yes,
na
ma'am.
meron
Similar
ng
po to-
presidential proclamation, in fact.
Yes, ma'am. Similar po to Australia, ma'am. Although po we defer to the wisdom of the legislators on whether there is a need for a law declaring again July 23.
So
as
when
a-
July 23 comes round, paano kayo nagse-celebrate at sino nagbabayad ng gastos?
Normally po, ma'am, may hosting po kami with the Japanese. Sa MUFA, we every year po the ambassador would host a luncheon with MUFA to celebrate Philippine-Japan Friendship Day. But during milestone celebrations po, like in 2026, we'll be having the 70th, ma'am, it will be a bigger celebration po. Normally, ma'am, 2 years before the milestone celebration, we propose it in the budget for a series of celebrations, ma'am.
So you proposed it in the GAA budget?
Yes, ma'am. For milestone po, ma'am. But every year po, we have a luncheon with the MUFA, ma'am.
I see.
With the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
I see. Okay. And then perhaps we can call on the DCM, Eric Tamayo of
Thank you.
France, of the embassy in France. Any thoughts?
Good morning, Senator. Yes, thank you. I would also like to, my ambassador is also online, but at any rate, I'm pleased to note that there's this resolution before us on the Philippine-France Friendship Day. There was a similar initiative undertaken several years back under Senate Bill 2639, declaring Philippine-France Friendship Bill at that time. And friendship days, either through special proclamations or legislation, can certainly significantly enhance ties with strategic allies and countries which we have shared history and values. So we believe these are very important celebrations, and they provide an opportunity to commemorate mutual respect, launch new initiatives, and enhance strategic partnerships.
Thank you. But
And,
sorry. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
The question is number one in the bill that was filed with regard to the Philippine-Paris Friendship Day. Firstly, it's not under the DFA, but rather under the NHCP. I think the NHCP as well as the NCCA is here, number one. And I'm sure they're also going to cry budget because they're already struggling as it is. And number two, there's a 15 million appropriations clause. So how are you funding June 12, Christmas get-togethers, other significant days, and even the 26th of June, which I know from time to time is also commemorated in Paris? Paano pinopondo, Apo Tamayo?
Yes, Madam. The celebrations are funded through our annual budget. And
I see.
Yes.
Thank you, thank you. Would the NHCP like to weigh in, Mr. Corpus? Dahil kayo ang tinutukoy nitong bill na to.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and good afternoon to everyone. Isang makasining na araw po. For the National Commission for Culture and the Arts, generally we have interposes no objection on these bills Because as of this time, we also have active cultural agreements with them. So with or without the legislation, meron naman po tayong mga memorandum of understandings, cultural programs, and cultural agreements with most of these countries mentioned here. Ang ano lang po is that we also prepare, that's why hindi po annually. Usually, milestone activities lang po yung aming sineselebrate because, as you well know, sa usapin po ng budget. But,
But I'm just curious kasi is it wise? If this bill is approved, is it wise to put it under NHCP or NCCA given the full gamut of Philippine-French relations are not limited to culture, no? Very active in defense and other manufacture, the OFWs, all of which do not fall under the ambit of the NHCP.
Yes.
By right, it should be under the DFA, like
Yes.
the other bills. Is that correct?
yes, Madam.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. I just needed that on record. Salamat. And now we get to the Deputy Head of Mission from Israel, who's also online. Would you like to comment on the Philippine-Israel friendship and the reminder that due to the massive civilian casualties inflicted by the Israel-Hamas conflict and the numerous allegations of war crimes, this is not the time to pass this?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of this committee. Shalom, greetings of peace from the Holy Land. My name is Anthony Mandap, Deputy Head of Mission and Consul General at the Philippine Embassy in Tel Aviv, and I'm joined here by Mr. Terry Bautista, Vice Consul and Third Secretary of the Embassy, and our political attaché, Ms. Wendy Cruz. The Embassy wishes to express its appreciation to this committee for providing this forum and its support in principle for Senate Bills 2141 and 2372, as well as House Bill 7763, declaring August 9 as Philippines-Israel Friendship Day. The bills correctly laid down the premise that the compassionate act of President Manuel Quezon of giving shelter and refuge to some 1,300 Jews in 1939 is the defining moment in Philippines-Israel relations and thus deserves
Yes,
to be...
Deputy, that's all contained in the bill. Thank you.
Yes, Madam. However, we leave it to the sound discretion of Congress to decide whether this measure needs legislative fiat. We are also not aware of any similar counterpart legislative measure here in Israel. So, and besides, I think there's still some disagreement on the dates. The ongoing events in Israel do not detract from the fact that the Philippines and Israel have a long-standing friendship. However, we also leave it to the sound discretion of Congress whether this is a timely measure to pass at this time. And on this question, we can probably defer to our Office for Middle East and Middle East and African Affairs to assess whether the timing is appropriate given our evolving position in the ongoing war and the events that are still unfolding.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And with that, I think we then constitute the TWG with representation from the minority leader who has authored the bulk of them and was the previous chairman of this committee. And we invite the DFA to send a representation as well as the DMW. Perhaps it's no longer necessary to involve the NCCA and the NHCP who are already struggling with their own burdens of work as well as lack of budget. So, kayo na muna ang mag-TWG, okay lang. And with that, we proceed with the permission of the minority leader to the next set of bills, and that's the Good Samaritan at Sea law. This was filed by both Senator Tolentino as well as Senator Villanueva, and we invite, therefore, Senator Tolentino, one of our authors, to discuss his version, given that Senator Villanueva has already inserted into the record an opening statement. So essentially, there are quite a few international maritime conventions to which the Philippines is a signatory, and this seeks to implement those international agreements. Senator Tolentino, please.
Chair, I think this was filed several years ago. Senate Bill 1136.
What I have is 1388 from Senator Tolentino,
Yes, correct.
filed in October of 2022.
Yes, 1388, and essentially it is in compliance. You're correct, ma'am. 13888. I don't have my reading glass here with me. But essentially, Madam Chair, it would entail the duty to render assistance to vessels involved in accidents, in distress, and the duties of the masters of the ship, etc., considering that we are an archipelagic nation, and we're on the verge of passing the Archipelagic Sea Lanes Act, and perhaps the members of this committee are aware of previous incidents, specifically the one that transpired a few months ago somewhere within the vicinity of Zambales and Pangasinan, wherein a big vessel coming from South Korea hit a small Filipino vessel that resulted into the death of four Filipino fishermen from Subic, Zambales. So, Madam Chair, this would entail the mandatory rendering of assistance to vessels in distress and providing penalties for the failure or inability to render assistance. These are all in compliance with existing international law, Madam Chair. So what we're trying to do here is to merge international law with domestic legislation. And I see this as a gap. Considering that we have fishermen going out there, especially during typhoon seasons, and there is really a need to provide penalties for those who fail to render assistance. So that is the gist of the legislative measure, Madam Chair. The Act providing rules for the duty to render assistance at sea in accordance with relevant international conventions to which the Philippines is a state party. So we just domesticated these international conventions, Madam Chair. So I hope this measure would pass muster soon, because we really need to have this law in place. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, thank you very much, Senator Tolentino. There are differences between Senator Tolentino's version and Senator Joel Villanueva's version, our majority leader. So at this juncture, may I release the ambassadors who have already commented on the various bills regarding the Friendship Days, given that you're on different time zones and you've already expressed the opinion of your various offices. Pwede na po kayo umalis. In the meantime, andito na tayo. At yung Marina is now present. Attorney Daniel Martin Oral. Asa na po kayo? Marina claims, oh, there we are. Where is Attorney Oral?
Senator, he's in another meeting po.
Oh, so he's not here. I'm misinformed, therefore. So you are Attorney Espino, is that correct?
Yes, Senator.
All right, and the DND is virtually represented by Engineer Angelito Estrada and Neria Bayad. I don't see them on the screen. Now, Committee Secretary, can we sort that out, please? Saan po yung DND? Can you put the video on? Okay, I'm still seeing the Eiffel Tower, which I don't mind, but you're released po. Apakaganda kaya. Engineer Estrada, is that you? DND, please, you're mute. Can you respond and identify yourself, please? Neria Bayad?
Madam Chair, good afternoon. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Eric Bayad.
Okay, oh, you're Colonel Bayad. All right, and there is an Engineer Estrada? Or are you the only representative of the DND po?
Madam Chair, Engineer Sam Castro is present po. On board, ma'am.
I don't see him. Committee Secretary, can you resolve the videos, please? In the meantime, let's proceed. For lack of time, we do have a session at 3 o'clock. Okay, Chapter 5 of the SOLAS requires that masters of the ships render assistance, covering all ships except warships. Is Chapter 5 not self-executory? Is there a need to enact a local, municipal, or national law to cover the same subject matter? Hindi po ba covered na yan and it's self-executory? Does it actually need translation into the municipal law? Yes, DFA please. DFA legal please. Po.
Ma'am, I'm from the
At
Maritime.
saka sa Maritime din? Yeah, DFA muna. Okay, and then Maritime, pwede kayong, Marina, pwede kayong sumagot? O Maritime? Sige.
Ma'am, thank you very much, Your Honor. I'm from the Maritime and Oceans Affairs Office, DFA. As to your question whether it's self-executory, we feel that it is, but it doesn't hurt to have this legislation as well.
Yes, that's my understanding. It's self-executory, and that there is no need for municipal law.
If I may interject, the measure would provide for the specific jurisdiction of courts. The international conventions, yes, which we have entered into, the International Convention for the Safety of Life at Sea, the UNCLOS, doesn't specify the regional trial court involved, the courts involved, even the prosecutor's office. So this bill would really detail specifically on Section 6 thereof, as well as the penalties. The penalties are not provided for under international law.
Yes, that's
so
correct.
With this, we'll have the exact amount, 10 million pesos, 20 million pesos, et cetera, as well as the other penalties that would require imprisonment.
Yes, that's correct. However, it should be noted that there's a distinction between the two bills, given that Senator Tolentino indicates that jurisdiction should be given to the RTC, whereas Senator Villanueva indicates that criminal action shall be instituted in the RTC, nearest to the place or maritime zone. So, failing which, it should be the RTC of Manila. These are the things we have to settle, Senator Tolentino. In addition, the penalties differ also as stipulated. Senator Tolentino is much harsher with a 5 million fine versus the 100,000 fine of Senator Villanueva, and so on. So I suppose we could align these during study at TWG, and we take cognizance of Senator Tolentino's opinion that in fact a detailed law indicating jurisdiction as well as the penalties would be necessary to effect the implementation of SOLAS, even if it's been around for, what is it now, 50 years. It's 50 years and there are no details on how it should be enforced. So this is probably necessary. The other issue is that, of course, Senator Villanueva limits the application of the Good Samaritan law to our territorial sea, archipelagic waters, internal waters, and Philippine flag vessels within the EEC. However, Senator Tolentino does not provide for such limitations. So, what in the opinion of both Marina, the Coast Guard, as well as the DFA would be advisable? Should it be the limited area that are considered territorial waters under Senator Villanueva, or should it include larger unlimited zones? Yes, Asek Maningat.
Thank you, ma'am, for giving me the floor once again. On matters involving the implementation and operationalization of the proposed measure, we defer actually to PCG because they would be able to designate really the scope that they can.
Fine. Captain Kalika, is there any opinion from the PCG as to the limitation of its application within our territorial sea as opposed to an unlimited application?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Senator Tolentino.
Under
please.
Section 7 of this representation's proposed measure, if the violation was committed within the internal waters or territorial sea, additional penalty would be imposed because we have complete sovereign jurisdiction over said waters. So I think that there is no conflict, Madam Chair. Okay. It's just highlighted that with more reason, if it is committed within our internal waters and territorial sea, additional penalties would be should be imposed.
It appears to me that, in fact, your bill has no such limitations as Senator Villanueva's bill does.
Yes, Madam Chair, because even if it's not, it's beyond the, if it's within our contiguous zone, the principle of international law is to really render compassion and service
Sure.
to the mariners here probably would be more familiar with this, that an SOS signal would know no boundaries. You have to render service to a vessel in distress.
Yes, thank you. I think we can ask Attorney Espino, any opinion from Marina?
Actually,
After
Madam,
all, this is not as sanguine and inoffensive as it appears. The bill contains provisions on requisitions, which could be controversial. Ah, okay. Yes. Yes, Attorney Espino.
actually, Madam Chair, we also defer to the PCG for the implementation of this as maritime safety and enforcement is properly under their purview and mandate.
Okay. So, is there anything that the PCG can tell us regarding this? I'm still concerned about the coverage, but please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Coast Guard Captain Kalika from the Philippine Coast Guard. The Philippine Coast Guard, being the National Maritime Search and Rescue Service of the country, whose mandate is to save lives and properties at sea in accordance with Republic Act 1993, strongly supports the passage of this bill, as it ensures the safety of the public at sea.
Yes.
In case of any grave
I
and
think
imminent
we're in
danger.
receipt of that position
Yes,
paper.
ma'am.
It's a specific clause that we're inquiring about. And it has to do with the coverage and jurisdiction.
And for the coverage, we respond from within the territorial up to the exclusive economic zone when it comes to search and rescue, Madam Chair.
Yes, there's some controversy involved in your statement, sir, because after all, under the Yun Clause, the jurisdiction of the coastal state in the contiguous zone is limited to the enforcement of that state's immigration, customs, fiscal, and sanitary laws. So are we expanding coverage unduly? Any thoughts from both DFA and the PCG? I don't have the answer. I'm asking you to help us here.
The year-old treaty, according to our chairperson, so we must already be familiar with state practice. Ano bang state practice po rito? Who is the most familiar with this treaty? No, dapat DFA.
Okay,
DFA should be
DFA.
familiar with.
Is it advisable to limit the application of the law to our territorial sea as it is under the Villanueva bill, or do we have no limits? Because after all, under Yun Clause, the contiguous zone is also covered. Any thoughts, Asek Maningat?
Yes, ma'am. These are one of the issues that we wanted to deliberate on during the TWG because we also wanted the DOJ's opinion on this. But right now,
That's correct. The DOJ is not represented today. Wala yatang DOJ. The one representing DOJ for some strange reason is the NBI. Yes, well taken. That's correct. The DOJ should be requested for an opinion. Ano?
Chair, just
Yes,
one
Senator
final
Tolentino,
thought
please.
before I leave. I think, Madam Chair, kahit lang sa taas. Just one, we're all aware, and this is not controversial, that most of our fisher folks would fish insofar as the ends and length of our exclusive economic zone. And the exclusive economic zone, far beyond the contiguous zone, are rich fishing grounds. If our poor fisher folks would meet an accident, perhaps it is not just the PCG or the Philippine Maritime Police Command that should be rendering assistance, but under existing international law, any vessel for that matter should render assistance. That's why a Samaritan has no nationality. A Samaritan should render assistance even if you're beyond the territorial sea. And that's your duty as a vessel registered in your own country. In the same manner as the Philippines would be rendering assistance if a flag carrier of the Philippines is involved in speculatively in the Strait of Hormuz or in other international waters. So this has no boundaries. We just domesticated this for purposes of having the necessary jurisdiction and penalties if it would happen within seas where we can have a long arm stretch of our law. And I'm now referring to far beyond our contiguous zone. That's my simple thoughts on this matter, Madam Chair, and if I can be given the permission to leave this committee, I
Thank you
know
very much.
the matter is in good hands.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much,
Madam Chair.
Senator Tolentino. And that brings us to the topic of the nature of the vessels. SOLAS clearly does not apply to warships or any military vessels. So in both bills, there's no mention of any obligation to render assistance to military vessels or vessels owned by foreign governments. What is your understanding of the bills? Do their provisions apply to vessels owned by foreign militaries? What about Coast Guard vessels who are not considered part of the Navy and hence not military? Are they going to be considered exempted or included in the rubric of military vessels or vessels owned by foreign militaries? I think this is very important in the situation in the West Philippine Sea when Coast Guards and other militia vessels, apparently non-military, are swarming our seas. Any thoughts from the PCG, please? Ang Marina po, DND po. Ang daya ninyo, puro aabangan ng TWG, ah.
Madam Chairperson.
Sige, Colonel po.
Yeah, Colonel Guerrero.
Sorry, I can't see your name.
I'm Colonel Roderick Guerrero of the
Okay.
Naval Judge
Thank
Advocate,
you.
the Philippine Navy. Yeah, with regards to the Philippine Navy, though we are exempt by the provisions of the SOLAS and the UNCLOS, all of our assets performs the obligation to render assistance in case of distress at sea as a part of customary international law. So whether we are exempt or not, we make it a point that we render assistance to all distressed ships and all other more or less distressed vessels, as we may call it. And it's also part of our standing rules of engagement as naval operations other than war, or NOOTW. The task and authority delegated by higher authorities to render assistance, particularly in cases of maritime emergencies. So we do that. So even though we are exempt, and even though will not be placed under the ambit of the said law, we do our taskings and mandate
Yes.
to render assistance.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Colonel. I think the issue is the reverse. When the vessel asking for assistance is actually a vessel owned by a foreign military or a foreign government, more controversially, such as the Coast Guard or other foreign militia, not military, and they're the ones asking for help. Is this an obligation on the Filipino vessels nearby?
Madam Chair, I can only speak for the Philippine Navy. Based on my experience, I'm Captain Vincent Sibal, the Assistant Chief of Staff for Operations. For vessels that are part of the Navy of other countries, they usually ask for assistance through diplomatic channels or through military channels. So we do provide that assistance, and all ships of the Philippine Navy have what we call a rescue and
That's
assistance
correct.
bill.
Right.
So that we will be ready to perform rescue functions at any time that we are out at sea.
So they are actually applicable to vessels owned by the Philippine Navy, even if they're explicitly excluded.
Yes, Madam Chairman.
What about vessels owned by the BIFAR, by the LGUs, the PCG? They're owned by the government, correct? And they're non-warships. They're not warships, they're not military vessels, but they're owned by a foreign government, such as the Philippines, for example, the BIFAR, the LGU, the PCG. In many cases, people have accused the People's Republic of China that the militia fishing boats actually are government-owned as well. The problem is not merely the obligation to render assistance, but also the fact that we are criminalizing the failure to render help. So there are criminal penalties involved with very, very high fines and imprisonment. It's very important to determine the coverage. Kasama ba dyan lahat? Yun na nga eh. Kasi, diba, owned by a foreign government. Kasama pa rin BIFAR, kasama pa rin LGU, kasama pa rin Coast Guard. Paano ba yun? And, syempre, the counterpart of those groups as well. Any idea how this would work?
Madam
Yes,
Chair.
I think Captain Sally of the Coast Guard.
Thank you, Madam Person, ma'am. For me, it is necessary to include it in the provision. First, for a reason that we should also consider that vessels transiting within our archipelagic waters or territorial sea, though they may be within our jurisdiction, that we have full sovereignty over those maritime jurisdiction, but we should still consider that they might be also in exercise of what we call innocent passage, which is, as a coastal state, we technically don't have
Yes.
any jurisdiction over
Of
them.
course, we understand that. The question is the call for assistance, an emergency call. That's the problem.
Yes, ma'am. Still, I think, in my opinion, ma'am, still we still have to categorize them and put them into the
So we're not
jurisdiction.
always obliged to render assistance. Is that what you're saying? You have to understand that it's a crime to fail to do so,
Yes,
according
ma'am.
to these bills. So we need to define this very closely.
That's exactly, ma'am, because I don't think that we have also a jurisdiction to penalize other foreign vessels within our territorial sea if they fail to render assistance, for example. Because this is the way I read the bill, it was crafted in that way.
Tama yun. Kasi talagang we have no capacity to enforce this law.
Thank you,
Is that
ma'am.
what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you,
Oo.
ma'am.
Yan ang problema. paano to? Kaya nga, and this gets more complicated when you involve all sorts of small fishing boats and those owned and utilized by subsistence fishermen, which has happened many times, ano? The bills provide for stiff fines, even imprisonment to fail to render assistance. But our fishermen, particularly the subsistence folks, do not fully understand perhaps the provisions of this law. Even we are having trouble disaggregating all these penalties and territories. Palagay ninyo, they should be exempted din, hindi po ba? Kawawa naman sila, they don't have the capacity to save themselves. Paparusahan pa sila ng 10 million kapag hindi sila nakatulong sa iba. Palagay ko, exempted na yan, ano? O, sige, dapat isulat natin yan. Kawawa naman. Yes, did the ASEC want to say something po?
Yes, it's one of the issues that we wanted to discuss during the TWG, really, because the duty...
Well, we're here, and
yes, ma'am.
I'd like to hear from you.
Yes, so the duty to, based on our files, the duty to render assistance at sea extends to all areas of the oceans, including the territorial sea straits used for international navigation, archipelagic waters, EEZ, and the high seas. But the duty applies to all vessels without distinction, i.e. there must be a distinction between private vessels or warships or other vessels. So it wasn't quite explained here.
Yes,
And also,
I am in full agreement. ASEC and Colonel Sally, parehong sinasabi natin na dapat hiwa-hiwalayin itong mga iba't ibang vessels na to. Hindi pwedeng labo-labo. Kailangan i-define alin vessel ba talaga yon. Kasi the only exception being made is warship and military vessels, when in fact there are other grades. There are other boats owned by LGUs, there's BFAR, there's the Coast Guard, whose nomenclature is getting confused, and thereafter the militias, and most of all the subsistence fishermen. Ano? So dapat lahat ng kategoriyang yun, sulatin natin ng maayos. Yes, ASEC Maningat.
Ma'am, also we wanted to point out that the wording in UN clause on the duty to assist, the wording suggests that the shipmaster's duty to render assistance is limited under international law, and that shipmasters are required to balance their duties towards persons in distress and the safety and security of their own vessel and crew. So for subsistence fishermen, are they really in a position to give assistance?
No, they can barely stay alive. I mean, as it stands. Subsistence nga eh. And accidents have occurred from time to time, and there have been accusations by Vietnamese vessels and Chinese vessels and Filipino vessels that the nearby ships didn't help them. So I think it has to be more carefully understood. The other controversial provision is the one to do with requisitions. Some ship owners and shipmasters will find these provisions extremely onerous, and they'd be protesting that they're unable to comply. What's the extent of the requisitions mentioned in the bill? Will the PCG be allowed to actually physically take over the ship? Will the PCG personnel be allowed to physically steer the ship, control the engine, take over the bridge, the communications, the radar, and so on? Parang ganun yung, dun sa pagkasulat, parang sakop lahat yun. So, gusto ba natin mangyari yun? Parang mahirap din yata yun. What happens, the master of the ship will also take over the ship being requisitioned. For example, a fishing boat is in distress, and this has happened many times, requested for the requisition of a nearby mega oil tanker. Can the master of the fishing boat demand that he will physically control the multi-billion oil tanker? It's so not happening, di ba? Kasi may requisition eh. So ite-take over ng master of the ship. Palagay ko laughable, ano? Parang komedya naman yata mangyayari niyan. Yes, Commander Ferre.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Some clarifications lang, ma'am, no? Kasi doon sa requisitions po yung ginamit natin. But on the real scenario, what we're doing is designating, ma'am. We designate an on-scene commander. And it's the on-scene commander who supervises, who's the close vessels while doing the SAR operations. Parang supervision po yung naandyan. Until such times that authority like the Coast Guard will come in and take over.
So it doesn't really happen that they take over.
Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am.
The
Hindi po
ship.
siya mag-take over dun sa
That's
ship. Kasi
right.
it's the captain who knows his ship and all the communications are just being
That's
communicated
right.
on the on-scene commander.
That's exactly what happens in reality, no? But perhaps we should write the bill more carefully, especially the provisions on the requisition. Kasi mukhang madugo yata yan pag tinake overan yung malaking tanker. Pagtatawanan na tayo niyan, hindi naman po pwede yan. What about the safeguards against baseless request for requisition? There should be safeguards also, no? Perwisyo lang yan, di ba? Kung minsan, panggulo lang, paano ba yon? Maybe there should be some penalties also, or sanctions, or warnings, or something. Hindi rin pwede yun, di ba? Hassle yun, mayat-maya, na pinipeste yung mga barko. Hindi man po pwede yun, di ba? And the other thing is, how do we make sure? Kasi natatakot na ako sa nangyayari sa Red Sea, yung mga Houthi. How do we make sure that criminal groups and terrorists and pirates do not feign distress, request for requisition from some nearby ship, board the requisition ship to carry out unlawful acts? Yung pala titirahin na nila lahat nung nandun. Mangyayari yan eh, kasi magkukunwari sila na in distress, mag-emergency signal, tapos hahayaan mag-board kasi may requisition. Can that actually happen? In theory, it can, and it has actually in the Red Sea and elsewhere. What are your thoughts? How do we prevent that happening? Yes,
Yes,
Commander
Madam
Ferry.
Chair. I think we really need to further study the word of requisitions because in the real scenario, it's not happening. Yeah, because it's the master who knows his vessel.
Yes, Minority Leaders asking, has an actual requisition ever taken place in the 50 years of SOLAS? I think it has, but in other jurisdictions sa Pilipinas, wala. Kayo?
Parang wala po, ma'am. It's usually
Parang
the
dito
salvage
wala eh.
master, ma'am. If the vessels cannot do it alone, yung salvage master will board the vessel and help the captain to find ways on how to save the vessels. Ganun po, ma'am. Or the crew.
That's
before.
not requisition?
Yeah, it's not requisition, ma'am. It's not
What's it called?
Uh,
Nakakatakot kasi yung word na requisition.
Yes, ma'am. Because
parang
what we really
takeover
are calling it is the designation. We designate an on-scene commander. It can be a merchant ship who is capable of communications and planning because all merchants are trained for that and they know how to do it. But until such time that a competent authority will come in and took over, but they will just respond as on-scene commander also, not to requisite the vessel, ma'am. Wala pong aakyat doon kasi it's dangerous din po.
Kaya nga eh, kaya't yun nga ang nais natin alamin, parang nakaka-nervyos yata yun. Mamaya kung sino-sino na lang umakyat ng mga vessels natin, PCG, BFAR, iba't iba, masaklap na yung ating kasaysayan dyan sa Red Sea at napakadami, parami ng parami, mga Pilipino nadadali sa forced requisition. Medyo allergic na ako sa salitang yan. So, ASEC, the DOJ says they will submit a position paper. Is there anything from the DND and any addition from the Marina? Would the DND like to add? Colonel Bayad, is that correct? Po. Are you still online, po? Anything you'd like
Yes,
to
ma'am.
add? Or perhaps you will just submit a position paper specifically on the controverted provisions, please?
Ma'am, we will just submit our position paper for the bill.
Okay, because there's still quite a few burning issues outstanding. Attorney Espino of Marina, may madadagdag po kayo?
As to the issue, Madam Chairman, of requisition, as far as our records show, requisition has not been performed yet as it is, in fact, a tricky issue. So, we propose the inclusion of provisions setting parameters as arbitrary requisition might tantamount to arrest, which we simply cannot do without legal basis.
Yes, thank you very much. We agree. It's tantamount to arrest and really looks like a war measure. So I think there is really not much for the NBI to comment on, except that you should be our messenger to urge the DOJ to come out with their position paper, particularly on the controversial provisions as soon as possible para ma-decisionan natin to. Okay. Naging postmaster ka na lang. Okay. Are there any other ideas or other problems that we need to air before we resort to a TWG?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Minority
the director of the NBI is here with us today because he is a good Samaritan.
Yes, and he's rescuing the DOJ. Thank you very much. With that, I think we've covered most of our agenda, and we constitute two TWGs. The first one with reference to the Friendship Days, and a second one with regards to the Good Samaritan at Sea laws already filed as bills by two of our colleagues. Thank you very much, and especially thank you to our Minority Leader. And with that, I herewith suspend this hearing until the next hearing of the Committee on Foreign Relations. Thank you very much to all those who participated.